Welcome to the Macmillan Report. I'm Marilyn Wilkes, your host, and our guest is Luis Moreno Ocampo, the first prosecutor of the International Criminal Court and a senior fellow at the Jackson Institute at Yale University. Earlier in his career, he worked as a prosecutor in Argentina. He first came to public attention in 1985 as assistant prosecutor in the trial of the Juntas. This trial was the first since the Nuremberg Trials, where senior military commanders were prosecuted for mass killings. Today we talk with Mr. Moreno Ocampo about his work with the ICC. Welcome, Mr. Moreno Ocampo.
Thank you for taking me here.
In 2003, you became the first prosecutor of the newly created ICC. For those not familiar with it, give us an overview of it and the reason for it. It's
the International Criminal Court is like Nuremberg, but permanent.
Okay.
So in fact, Nuremberg was a landmark. Nuremberg was the first time that the prosecutors were representing not a country. Jackson was representing humanity against the Nazi crimes. And it was the beginning, and the idea was to establish something permanent, in particular to control genocide, because in 1948, a genocide convention was adopted and requested to have a permanent international criminal court. However, the Cold War stopped the effort, no agreement. The end of the Cold War created a new moment, and the Balkans War and the horror of people in concentration camps, that people were thinking, oh my God, this is Nazi again, made that in 1993, the United Nations Security Council created a new international criminal tribunal for Yugoslavia.
Okay.
And this tribunal, Milosevic was prosecuted, and now Karadzic and Mladic are there. And that was the Nuremberg back for a special case. Next year, 1994, Rwanda genocide.
Right.
1 million people killed with machetes. So the world cannot ignore it. They will ignore the crime, but then, okay, they had to do something with the perpetrators, and they created this new tribunal for Rwanda. And this created the momentum. And then in 1998, there was a conference at Rome to debate if a new permanent court could be created. And it was incredibly complicated because it was 5 weeks, people from 160 countries debating, and there were 1,400 issues to debate. It was a project with 1,400 different topics to debate.
Wow.
And at the end of the last day, there was a yes or no vote. And 120 countries say yes. And 7, including US and China and Israel, say no. But the convention was adopted. And the convention required 60 states ratifying the treaty. And in 2002, 10 states ratified the treaty and made more than 60, and then became operational. And therefore, in 2003, the states were looking for one prosecutor and 18 judges.
Okay.
In those days, there were 78 states from all over the world, mostly Europe, Latin America, and Africa. These were the basic contingencies. And in those days, I was very happy at Harvard teaching. I was a visiting professor there. I was working in Argentina for many years, and then suddenly they offered me this position. I was so happy. And then they called me, and they say, we put your name in the list of candidates to be the chief prosecutor. Now your name is in the top, but we don't know if you like the job. So, okay. I was thinking they would never do it. And they appointed me. So on June 16, 2003, was my first day, I was my swearing as a chief prosecutor at The Hague in a beautiful peace palace done by Carnegie.
In the Netherlands. In
the Netherlands, yes. And I had 6 floors empty, 2 employees, 18 judges waiting for my cases. Bush administration was pretty furious with me because they were thinking it was bad for the U.S. because the U.S. can be exposed, and they were thinking could be a frivolous prosecutor prosecuting bad cases. So that was my job, impossible job. In fact, when I was at Harvard, one of my colleagues told me, Luis, it's a great honor to be the prosecutor, but you have to refuse it. I said, why? I don't have to refuse it. He said, it would be a shame for you. Imagine, it would be, without U.S. support, you cannot investigate. You cannot arrest people. So basically, you would be 9 years at The Hague doing nothing and receiving a salary. That was his prediction. So I was thinking, okay, I should find my way to move these cases. And so we started with some cases in Uganda and Congo. Joseph Kony was my first in IT. Now Kony is famous because of video Kony 2012. And suddenly Darfur became a big deal. And the Commission of Inquiry requested, UN appointed a Commission of Inquiry to investigate the crimes. They concluded there were crimes committed that should be investigated. And the Bush administration accepted, and then the Security Council referred the situation of Darfur to us. So suddenly, we are not so much enemies. We became aligned.
Right.
We started to investigate Darfur, and we keep investigating in Kenya, in Ivory Coast, and in 2011, when the Libya case arrived, the Security Council, by consensus this time, all the votes, 15 votes, China, US, India, everyone, adopted the idea to refer the case to us. So one of my last cases was Gaddafi. And then we did also the former president of Cote d'Ivoire. And then now I left in June 2012. So the court now has my office, the office of the prosecutor has the new prosecutor Fatou Bensouda from Gambia, Africa. And she has 300 people working in 8 different countries. Investigations and trials are moving.
So what would be the teeth of the ICC? I mean, how do you actually bring the people to the court to be judged? I mean, do you work with countries to make that happen? How does that happen?
Imagine the US with no FBI, no federal government, but the court in Washington. And then you monitor crimes, and when California is not doing its job, you investigate in California. And then you need states arresting them. So that's what we did. Congo arrests some people, Belgium arrests someone else, France arrests someone else. So some of them are difficult to arrest. Kony is difficult to arrest because it's surrounded by a militia. But Bashir is still the president of Sudan, difficult to arrest. Gaddafi was executed, killed, but his son is in jail, and we are discussing where should be him prosecuted at The Hague or in Libya. So at the end of the day, we get our criminals. Right. The prediction of my friend from Harvard was wrong. We were working, and suddenly, so basically now the world is less primitive. The world has a permanent court ready to intervene when there are massive atrocities, and we are automatically working in countries who are members of the court, which are today 122 states from all over the world involved with the ICC, and in the countries which are not, like Darfur, Sudan, or Libya, the Security Council can refer the case to us. So that's the model. So basically, my feeling is the world is evolving. The world is less primitive now. So
in the 9 years that you were the prosecutor for the ICC, what do you think is one of your proudest moments?
Each day was a crisis. Each day we have a crisis in the morning, another crisis in the afternoon. It was fun. It was impossible because we have to investigate in impossible places. We have to investigate in Darfur without going to Darfur. When the Libya case, we feel if we are fast and we put pressure, the Gaddafi people will understand they have no future, they have to surrender. So, and that happened, in fact. So we pushed them, and some of them started to surrender, and some generals were calling us. So it's not just putting people in court. The court is playing a role in deterring crimes, and that for me was the most complicated and interesting job. So, and also whatever you decide, there are 1 million opinions different than your opinion. So everyone criticizes you, whatever you do. Yes. That's funny.
Well, and what would you say is your biggest regret then?
No, it was amazing. I was hard, but it was really a difficult job. I had no regret. But that's why I like to be at Yale now, because being the IC prosecutor was doing something completely new, as you did. I should explain the basic. What is that? How it's working? No one understands that. And the academia is not yet understanding that. That's why I love to be at Yale, not just with I like that to be with the law school, but I like to be in the Jackson Institute because it's not just a matter of lawyers, it's a matter of how the diplomats, the political leaders, the armies dealing with these conflicts. Right. So that's why I like to be in a place where it's not just lawyers, army guys, intelligent people, diplomats, politicians. We need to integrate the ICC. But also yesterday, and that was, for me, it's great to be at Yale. Because yesterday I was in this new center on network analysis, and I was delighted because they were explaining network help to put together pieces. Science normally is fragmenting information. So you are a specialist in little things. And network is helping you to see the big picture. And that's why
everything together.
Yes, and we need that in our field.
Right. So what do you think are the greatest challenges that the ICC faces? I mean, it is relatively new since
it's
it
totally
was just
new.
created.
It's 10 years.
Yes,
ICC is totally new, but the challenge is not the ICC, the challenge is the world. We are living, look, when I was at Harvard, I'm sorry to say I was at Harvard.
That's
I know
okay.
It's complicated. Okay, thank you. The guy who invented Facebook was there, launching Facebook. And it's funny because people are impressed because Facebook now has more than 1 billion clients. You know how many citizens from different countries are under ICC? 2.2 billion, 340 million. So we grew fastest than Facebook. But in any case, Facebook is showing you it's a new world where you have we are living in physical space, but also, in particular, the young generation living in a virtual world.
Right.
With Facebook and
technology has really made the world much smaller.
Combining. But the problem is we are united by technology, but divided by political institutions. We are still relying in national states, and we need national states. But the problem is, for instance, criminality is global. Organized crime is global. And we are not understanding this problem. So that's why for me the ICC is not just about the genocide crimes, which are very important, and we need to understand how to deal with them, but also normal organized crime. Let me explain. I was starting my first case in Congo, and then I was reading a report that the militia from Congo was buying weapons to the Ukrainian mafia.
Okay.
So at The Hague, there is Europol, all the European police together. So I went there to check what they knew about the Ukrainian mafia selling weapons in Congo. And the German guy who was in charge of the Europol told me, we know everything about the Ukrainian mafia, but we had no idea that they were working in Africa, because we are not covering Africa, we are just covering Europe.
Right.
So the Ukrainian mafia is working around the world, but Europol, with the biggest police organization, is controlling Europe. And that's a problem. It's impossible to control them.
So you need a global police force.
I don't think it will be a global police force because no state will accept that, because states are reluctant to. But we need to invent something new. And ICC is the new institution, because I don't need a global police. I could work with local polices, but I can do global investigations. And that, for me, is a trick we have to develop.
I see. So Fatou Bensouda became the prosecutor in 2012. If you could offer her any advice, what would it be?
No, they had to be right of Ocampo. No, they have 9 years is enough Ocampo for them. No. She's making her own decision. No, but
I mean, anything that you learned
in
those 9 years?
Fatou Bensouda was with me. She was my deputy for 8 years.
I see.
She was involved. That was for me, I was so relaxed, because I really make a big effort to be there and work. But the biggest achievement for me was to build an institution.
Right.
So the fact that it's someone who represents me, who understands very well what happened. So she's changing things because she had to do it, but she understands the past. So
I see.
We are doing that. So no, I respect her independence.
Okay.
If she called me, and sometimes occasionally she called me, I try to help, but if not, she had to be free of me. Yeah. But it's very important because it's funny, because I was prosecuted. It happened that almost all my cases are in Africa. So when we prosecuted Bashir, Bashir was abusing of the colonial idea, oh, I am African, you are against Africans. Okay, when the African is a killer and the victims are African, I care about the victims. But interestingly, your colleagues, the journalists, normally are following this Bashir stupid idea. 4 years ago, when Bashir started with the idea that it's about the colonial African bias of the ICC, I was thinking it's crazy, it's a genocide. How they can ignore the genocide? They did it. So Bashir convinced people that it's not about his genocide, who now no one talks about genocide in Darfur, and it's still ongoing. It's about the African thing. And that's why FATO is now the new face, and it's great. It's much more institutional. It's no more one person. And she's from Africa, so...
Well, and I was going to say, since she is from Africa, do you think that might help a little bit? No?
No, because it's an alibi. It's an excuse. No, nothing changed. It's an excuse. You cannot say to FATO, you're against Africa, but they keep doing that. Yeah. No. It's just like look, a prosecutor represents the community. And when you prosecute someone in Connecticut, okay, you're connecting a community is more or less homogeneous. When you represent the world, there are so many voices. There are 7 billion voices, in fact. So it's complicated, but it's growing, it's moving.
What do you think the future will be for the ICC?
It's not for me, the ICC, for the world. The world needs a less predictive system. Imagine if someone steals your bike and there's no police and no judge, what do? You have to fight with the neighbor to recover their bike, or just ignore his stealing your bike and tomorrow another bike. So institutions are the systems that we invented to manage violence. Why there is no war between Massachusetts and Alabama now? It's impossible, because you have the US government, the federal government. When Helmut Kohl, when Germany was reunified, was a famous meeting at the European Union, when Helmut Kohl, in those days the leader of Germany, say, I am aware that I'm using the Hitler chair. But no one was afraid, because the European Union now is an institution who will avoid a conflict between Germany and France. So basically, we have to understand, to establish some basic peace, it's not just about killing the bad guys. It's about building institutions. And it's complicated, but that's why I like to be at Yale, thinking on these issues.
So now you are at Yale here at the Jackson Institute as a senior fellow teaching students. What is it that you'd like them to take away from your class?
I don't know theories. I know what is happening in real life. And that's why I like this Jackson approach, to have people like me who are coming with the reality. And we need that. We need that.
Yes, reality and theory.
Both,
together.
Yes.
Exactly.
We need the new facts. That was my challenge, to transform my experience into information that scholars can transform into theory. That is my challenge. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's why I found Yale is very collegial. And the problem is, look, I was trying to be predictable. When I was a prosecutor, I prepared 3 years plans. So I present my next 3 years plan. So when I was in the last, 2009, 2012, I called a friend of mine who is at Stanford University and said, look, can you collect your friends? Because at Stanford is the Hoover Institute, people are very smart. Okay, I'd like to see what they are thinking on this issue. Can I go there for 1 day and interview your guys to see if they have some ideas? And he say, okay, Luis, I will do it, but no hopes, he say.
Really?
Yeah. And it's funny, I went there, and a Nobel Prize guy telling me, oh, I'm very glad to meet you, because my students always talk about the SEC. I try to dissuade them, but they insist. Can you explain to me, what is this? Why they are insisting so much? So at the end of the day, I told my friend Steven Krasner is a great guy, he's a genius. I said, your friend had no idea what happened. And he said, Luis, we are professors. We need data. And the data is coming from the 90s, not yet what happened to the 21st century. And interesting, because in particular, even in social science, we like quantitative data. But the court has finished one case. So there's no quantitative data
Right.
because it's a change here.
Sure.
So that's why what I'm doing at Jackson is trying to do a case study because I believe, okay, it's impossible to have quantitative data now. At least we present the dimension of the problems in one case, Gaddafi case. And then you can see the interaction between Security Council, who decide do justice first, then, and this was consensus, then divisions when decided to use armies in military option in Libya, and then as a consequence, Syria today. So Syria, in part, is a consequence of Libya. And I think we have to understand what is happening in the last 3 years to help political leaders to understand how they can manage.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to do here.
Okay, very good. This has been fascinating. Thank you so much for being here with us and sharing some of your work.
Thank you very much.
For more information about Mr. Moreno Ocampo, please visit our website at yale.edu/Macmillan Report. Be sure to join us again for another episode of the Macmillan Report, made possible through funding from the Whitney and Betty Macmillan Center for International and Area Studies at Yale.